This is our MEMT201 Challenger Space Shuttle Disaster Project by Janae Dotson, Jonna Gooden, and Colby Gary. For the location and time of the disaster, it happened on January 28th of 1986. The NASA Challenger Space Shuttle lifted off in Cape Canaveral, Florida. 73 seconds after liftoff, the shuttle malfunctioned and exploded at an altitude of 9 miles. The shuttle ended up exploding, and it ended up being an absolutely catastrophic event that was all over the news and things of that sort. Who was on board? Pictured are, starting from left to right, teacher in space Krista McAuliffe, and astronauts Gregory Jarvis, Judith Resnick, mission commander Dick Scobie, astronaut Ronald McNair, pilot Mike Smith, and astronaut Ellison Onizuka. Krista McAuliffe was the trailblazer for the Teacher in Space program, and the Challenger disaster was so catastrophic because it was broadcast in schools and workplaces around the nation. It was a huge deal as it was the first of its kind, and things went terribly wrong. It only took 73 seconds for everything to go to ruin. The shuttle exploded just 73 seconds after it launched, killing everyone on board. Investigators found that the faulty design of O-rings, a type of gasket, caused a leak in one of the two rocket boosters that then ignited the shuttle's fuel tank. The reasons behind the explosion weren't all technical.
Like power units have started. T-minus 21 seconds, and the solid rocket booster engine gimbal now underway. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll, Challenger. Good roll program confirmed. Challenger now heading downrange. Engines beginning throttling down now at 94%. Normal throttles for most of the flight, 104%. We'll throttle down to 65% shortly. Engines at 65%, 3 engines running normally, 3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs. Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles, downrange distance 3 nautical miles.
So the 25th Space Shuttle mission is now on the way after more delays than NASA cares to count. This morning it looked as though they were not going to be able to get off.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
To expand on the Teacher in Space program, Ronald Reagan was very heavily involved in the launch with NASA, and after the terrible, catastrophic event, he came on and made a public statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd planned to speak to you tonight to report on the State of the Union. But the events of earlier today have led me to change those plans. Today is a day for mourning and remembering. Nancy and I are pained to the core by the tragedy of the Shuttle Challenger. We know we share this pain with all of the people of our country. This is truly a national loss. 19 years ago, almost to the day, we lost 3 astronauts in a terrible accident on the ground. But we've never lost an astronaut in flight. We've never had a tragedy like this. And perhaps we've forgotten the courage it took for the crew of the shuttle. But they, the Challenger 7, were aware of the dangers, but overcame them and did their jobs brilliantly. We mourn 7 heroes: Michael Smith, Dick Scobie, Judith Resnick, Ronald McNair, Ellison Onizuka, Gregory Jarvis, and Krista McAuliffe. We mourn their loss as a nation together. To the families of the 7, we cannot bear, as you do, the full impact of this tragedy. but we feel the loss, and we're thinking about you so very much. Your loved ones were daring and brave, and they had that special grace, that special spirit that says, give me a challenge, and I'll meet it with joy. They had a hunger to explore the universe and discover its truths. They wished to serve, and they did. They served all of them.
Here is a complete and labeled diagram of the Space Shuttle Challenger. What was the cause of the accident? The loss of the Space Shuttle Challenger was caused by a failure in the joint between the two lower segments of the right solid rocket motor. The specific failure was the destruction of the seals that are intended to prevent hot gases from leaking through the joint during the propellant burn of the rocket motor. The faulty design of the seals made them extremely sensitive to a multitude of factors, those being, but not limited to, temperature, physical dimensions, character of materials, effects of reusability, processing, and reaction of the joint to dynamic loading. Some ethical concerns did end up surfacing shortly after the event occurred. There were talks of professional responsibility, effective communication, flight plan versus safety concerns, apparent unsafe launch conditions, reliance on emergency safety controls, and ignorance of known design faults. The total damage on the Challenger Space Shuttle disaster ended up with all 7 crew members aboard the Challenger Space Shuttle passing away, but many believe not immediately because they turned on at least 3 emergency breathing packs, but they died upon the 2-minute and 45-second descent towards the ocean. Altogether, it cost the nation $3.2 billion. As far as the family compensation goes, 4 crew members aboard the Challenger's families received a $7.7 million in cash worth of long-term tax-free annuities from the federal government, paid 40%, and the Thiokol paid 60%. These families did not hire lawyers. The other 3 families hired lawyers, which in turn ended with them not getting paid as much or none at all because of their home life, annual income, or they tried to separately sue Thiokol instead, but failed.
Space Challenger disaster, we came up with 3 possible solutions that could have prevented this. The first one is redesign a joint with a captured fit. The second is redesign a joint with a third O-ring. The third is redesign a joint with metals and O-rings that can handle temperature changes. Solution 1, to redesign the joint with a captured fit. In order to redesign a joint into a captured fit, metals would need to make circumferential tang, pelvis, and pin fastening can create this joint. Stainless steel would be the best metal for this type of joint because of its mechanical properties. Down below is a table showing the density, modulus of elasticity, specific heat capacity, thermal conductivity, melting range, and other mechanical properties that would make stainless steel the best option to redesign the metal for this joint. Next, we have the structure of stainless steel, as well as the casting speed, solidification rate, heat flux density, and solidification time. These are also things that would show and make stainless steel the best option to recreate this joint. Solution number 2, redesign the joint with the third O-ring. Adding a third O-ring provides a thermal barrier between hot gases and primary and secondary O-rings. As an O-ring, it maintains internal pressure, and because of its failure, it had a burn through. To the right is a picture that shows the changes made to the SRB joints after the Challenger disaster. NASA did, in fact, change some of their design, so we do know that this has been proven possible and is more effective than with just 2 O-rings. And the table down below shows the O-ring and its properties and chemical makeup, which make it the best option to have a third one. This table shows the number of damaged O-rings per launch compared to the temperature. Dots indicate temperature and O-ring damage for 24 successful launches prior to the Challenger. This goes to show that they had tested these O-rings many times beforehand and did not expect the challenge or disaster outcome that had happened. And best solution would be to redesign a joint with metals and O-rings that can handle temperature changes. An O-ring diameter and groove size have been modified to improve squeeze fit and can withstand temperature changes. Metals that can also withstand and still hold a firm position while exiting and entering Earth's atmosphere would be the best option. To the right, we have a picture of a solid rocket booster field joint design of the before and after of what they had to modify from the Space Challenger disaster. On the far left graph, we have the stress strain curve of rubber, which shows and explains why rubber is the best option to make an O-ring out of. To the right, we have the Young's modulus comparison, which is comparing metals, plastics, and elastomers, and shows their MPa, which goes to show their elongation and stress, and how they compare to one another, and how they can handle the stress of elongation. The third and final middle graph shows the relaxation characteristics of rubber, and why when temperature changes and certain circumstances change of rubber, the reactivity of rubbers and what makes it a good rubber does change. Overall, solution 3 is the best redesign of this joint. It adds the third O-ring, which allows less gases and heat escape and get into the motor, as well as the metals being changed allow the joint and certain pins to stay in place better, which allows for a more successful motor overall, which